friends, welcome back to my podcast. I think this is episode 7. I know I haven't been like 100% consistent the last couple weeks. Like I said, I have been in an active flare. Um, I got a haircut yesterday. I'm not used to it yet. Anyways, I know I said that I've been in a flare, so I know you understand that. And I'm feeling a little bit better today. And so I did want to jump on here and make sure I get something posted today. So I'm feeling a little bit better. Let's talk about it. I have taken 2 packs of prednisone. So that has helped just after I broke my arm. Oh, I got my cast off. It's still swollen, but I got my cast off yesterday. But after I broke my arm, my body kind of was freaking out. And the time that I broke my arm was during a stressful time also. So it was probably like all of that snowballing into, the flare freaking out. I started a new job in February. I'm stuffy. In case you hear me breathing through my mouth, I am a mouth breather today. But I started a new job in February, and I'm kind of like a perfectionist, an overachiever, which I know you can't tell from the podcast right now, but that's something else I'm beating myself up over. But I'm working on it. I'm working on giving myself grace, because I know that not giving myself grace can cause stress that can lead to flares. So I'm working on that. And then with my new job, it's probably the least repetitive job I've ever had. So I mean, I've had jobs in the past where like each client was different, but the rules were the same across the board, unless there was a reason for an exception, in which case I had say in whether or not the exception was granted. In my new job, there are laws in place. There are the rules of the documentation in place. They cannot contradict each other. And then there are someone's basically personal rules. And then you have like several different types of clients that we deal with. So every case is literally different, from the client being different to their situation being different to just the request in general being different. So there's literally no 2 things that are the same. There might be things that are similar but not the same. So that does make it difficult to learn. And for me, like at my last job, after I had been there a few months, I had already moved up like 3 positions. And before I left, I was manager. You know what I mean? So, and I was only there for like 1.5 years, 2 years, something like that. I would have to think about it. I don't feel like it. But anyways, so I have high expectations for myself. And normally when I work somewhere, I feel like I pick up really fast. I feel like this is my little breathing thing that I'm playing with, because I can't breathe through my nose right now. But anyways, so I usually pick up really fast. I will master my job and take on, the duties of other people. And so this job is different. When I started, it was easy because they gave me the easy stuff, right? While I was learning some other stuff. But we have like a committee that, like we have a team that we call together. If even an officer needs help or backup or, like thoughts on making a decision. So, to think that I'm going to go in and make all the decisions and take over and do all the things is not really likely. So I'm having a hard time giving myself grace on that. I was really stressed out. And then, you know, the stuff with like finding out that I was in an active flare. And I was last week had mentioned a couple times to my direct supervisor that I was overwhelmed, you know, and I mean, everyone's overwhelmed because everything's always changing and different, and, you know, and so she kind of was just like, yeah, me too, you know, and then I was in her office, and, I literally was thinking in my head, like, I don't know if I'm cut out for this, you know what I mean, because the girl that's sitting next to me, and she's been there for 2 years, but, well, yeah, 2 years, and in that position, I think, and you know, she does not break under pressure. Maybe inside, like maybe mentally, but on the exterior, she's always cool under pressure. She, you know, there very rarely do I sense stress coming from her, like legit stress. Like, she'll make jokes and stuff, but I mean, she's just really even keeled. And so, you know, when inside your head you're freaking out and you're just like, I don't know if I can do this, I don't know what I'm supposed to do next, I don't, you know, and the person next to you is doing great, um it can be intimidating. And so I was sitting in my supervisor's office, and she could tell that I was stressed, and I told her, I was like, I'm really overwhelmed. And my eyes started to well up with tears, and I was like, she goes, don't cry on me. And I was like, I won't, as the tears were like streaming down my face. But you know, we talked, and she explained to me that, you know, it is a stressful position and that I'm not alone, and if I ever need help with anything, I can come to her, and our team is great. No one ever makes me feel like I'm doing a bad job except for me. So I said all that to say that I do believe that work stress was huge, a huge part of the weight that was on me, but it was weight that I put on myself. And I think that I'm going to be okay now. I really was excited today. We have a meeting every week, and when I first started, I would start out by saying I'm super excited to be here because I didn't really have anything else to add to the meeting. But now I do have other things to add to the meeting, but I want to remember to be super excited to be here because it is a blessing. So health wise, outside of that, so I did the 2 prednisone packs, and I do think they've helped a lot. I took the medication for the sores. They're almost completely gone. I know this one here is almost gone. This one's almost gone. There was one on my ear in here. There was actually one over here, but it was weird that they were all on this side. When they took my cast off, I did have like this blister here. I don't know if you can see it, probably not. But anyway, so I mean, there's just little ways that the lupus is showing that, you know, it's not being held at bay right now. And so I started to tell you the story of the rheumatologist that I was supposed to be seeing. But I decided I didn't want to be super negative, but I am going to tell you a little bit about it because I do obviously need to go to a rheumatologist, and I'm going to be driving like 45 minutes to an hour away because of the experience I have with a rheumatologist near my house. So when you deal with doctors, especially on a regular basis, right? And you have doctors that are phenomenal. You have doctors that would go to the ends of the earth to save you, right? When you deal with that kind of doctor, then when you deal with a doctor that is just punching a clock, the difference is so super obvious, right? And these doctors that are phenomenal, it's hard not to see them as like angels, you know, sent from God, literally, to save your life. And because they're doing something that not a lot of people can do. They're brilliant, and they listen, and especially if they have amazing bedside manner. I mean, they're like one in a million, right? So, when I was first diagnosed with lupus, well, when I was first sick and didn't know that I had lupus, um, I was on Medicaid because I was a single mom and I was at the time 20 years old. And I had just moved to Florida, and I mean, I was a cocktail waitress, and I just really didn't have a lot going for me. I didn't have a ton of motivation. I didn't know what I was doing with my life, aside from being a mom. That was like front and center. And I was a cocktail waitress so that I could work at night while he was sleeping, so that I didn't miss any of the special moments, right? So I was on Medicaid. So at the time where I was living, um, you would call to make an appointment with a doctor, and they'd be like, yes, we accept Medicaid, and they would make the appointment. And then, you would get there and they would say, oh, we're not accepting new patients, which they couldn't tell you when you set the appointment. So you just waited like a week to get there. It was just like this turmoil of just like back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And so that lasted for like 2 months. That's why I was sick for 2 months before I actually got help, because it wasn't that I wasn't trying. I was really sick, but I couldn't get anyone to even get me through triage. And so I went to this doctor's office, and he was like a Middle Eastern doctor, which, I mean, he was a godsend, literally, whatever your beliefs are. When I got there, he pulled, well, they did the triage. So they did like my blood pressure, and they went ahead and did like a urine sample, and they took me into his office, like where his desk is, to sit down. And I may have already shared this, but just in case you're new, and he told me, he's like, you don't have any medical history, like negative medical history? And I was like, no. I mean, I had the pre-cervical cancer when I was pregnant with my son, but that was it. Nothing else had ever, I think when I was a kid, I had like an issue that kind of took care of itself. And he was like, well, your blood pressure is 170 over 120. And he was like, for a 20-year-old white girl, he was like, that's really not normal. And I was like, oh, okay, what's normal? And he was telling me like the parameters and stuff of what's normal, and I was just like, oh, okay, so it's just like a little bit, like 30 points higher than high normal. And he was like, no. He was like, that's a lot, like it shouldn't be that high. And so they had done the urine sample, and he was like, you have protein in your urine. I'm thinking that you might have, that you have kidney issues. And I was like, oh, okay, whatever. Like, I literally had no, I mean, I had no idea what any of this meant. And so this was around, like after Thanksgiving, before Christmas. And he was like, all right, well, what I want to do is, he gave me a medication because I did have arthritis. And he gave me a medication for that. And he said, let's get you back in here after the first of the year. And so, when we had gone back to his office, I was like, listen, I have Medicaid. Like, I don't know if you take Medicaid. And he was like, if Medicaid pays me, they pay me. If Medicaid doesn't pay me, then they don't. He's like, I didn't become a doctor to get rich. And I mean, it doesn't matter. He's like, I didn't become a doctor to get rich. I became a doctor to help people. And he did. And so when I got the diagnosis of lupus, when I finally made it into the stage where I was in the hospital, it was all because of him. It was because he had called me in or I had called him, and he told me to come in, and they ran tests and they found out that I had lupus. And the doctors worked very hard to get me transferred to a university hospital, where they eventually were able to save my life. So that is an example of one of those godsend, amazing, one in a million doctors. So then you have like your mediocre doctors. Maybe they're trying hard, they just don't really know about the situation. They're willing to learn. They're not, I mean, they're not terrible, right? They're still good doctors. They're just, when you're used to that kind of care, you're like, this is okay. Well, I went to a rheumatologist here. That was okay. She did tell me that lupus sores don't hurt, and I was like, have you ever had one? Because yes, they do. And that is something that bothers me when a doctor tells you that you don't hurt, or tells you that you're not uncomfortable, or because they don't know what you're actually feeling. Now, if they think it's psychosomatic, if they think, you know what I mean, like if they think it's in your head, or maybe you have nerve damage or whatever, maybe there's no reason why you should be feeling that. But if you're telling them you feel that, maybe you are feeling that, but it's just not the normal explanation as to why you're feeling it. So she was okay. When my husband and I walked out to check out and make the next appointment, the girls at the desk were on their computers and they were kind of chit-chatting and whatever, and my husband and I started talking about, it was the day after Will Smith punched Chris Rock. And so we were talking about it, and we were talking about how like we felt about the situation. And it became apparent that they didn't agree with us, which whatever, that's fine. We weren't talking to them. We were waiting for them to be done with whatever they were doing. And I just happened to look up to check in to see if she was ready for me. And she was sitting like this. And I was like, oh, are you waiting for me? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were still, getting everything ready. And she was like, no. And I said, okay, well, I am sensitive to that kind of stuff, especially when I'm in a vulnerable situation, like being at the doctor. And so, they checked us out, but they were so rude the whole time. And they were just like, I mean, when you're up here, you should be paying attention to us, blah, 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 blah. I mean, it was just like berating us for having a conversation while they were having a conversation that didn't have anything to do with us. And I don't know if it was just that I would just, sometimes when people say something to you and you're just like, the audacity, but it shocks you to the point where you can't really react. And so I just made the appointment with full intention of never going back there. But I was like, maybe I don't have a choice. So we walked out, and my husband and I had come in separate cars, and we walked out, and I got in my car and I just started crying. And I was just like, I don't know what I did. I didn't mean to upset them. I didn't mean to hurt their feelings. I really wasn't trying to be rude. I was just waiting for them. And he was like, you didn't do anything wrong. She could have said, excuse me, I'm ready for you at any time. And I'm like, no, you're right. But I just feel like I did something wrong because of the way she reacted. So I guess he went back and talked to them afterwards. Well, he talked to the supervisor of the office manager or whatever, and told them, that's not okay. She's here because she's sick, and for someone to make her feel that way is not okay. And so we decided we weren't going to go back to that rheumatologist. And so I told my primary care doctor, I was like, yeah, if I could go to someone else, that would be great. And he was like, well, what is the issue? And I was like, I mean, she was okay, but her staff was really rude, and I just really don't want to deal with it, when I have to go in to the rheumatologist. And he was like, all right, well, my doctor's in a group, so he was like, well, let's just take you to this other doctor in the group. That way it's just easier for them to communicate, with files and results and stuff like that. And I was like, okay. But it was at a different office. So when I went to this appointment, I walked in by myself. My husband didn't go with me. And I'm like, surely it's not going to be bad. And so I go in, and the doctor comes in the room, and she's like, why didn't you like that other doctor? And I was like, I did not like her. It just wasn't a good fit. Because I wasn't going to talk bad about her. I was just like, it just wasn't a good fit. I'm just looking for, a better fit if it's someone that I'm going to have to be working with a lot. She was like, well, that's my friend. And I was like, is this high school? What are we doing here? And she was just like, well, that's my friend, and there's nothing wrong with her. So I just don't understand why you would leave her. And I was like, it just wasn't a good fit. That's it. And so then she was like, everything I said, she argued. She'd ask me about a symptom, and then she'd be like, that's not lupus. I don't even think you have lupus. And she asked me about my hairline. I've always had a 5 head. I joke about it on here all the time. And she was like, so when did you start losing your hair? And she's like, is that new? And I was like, no, I just have a big forehead. And so when I left there, I was livid because the first time I was like, the audacity. Like, did I do something? I don't think I did something. They're just rude. And the second time I was like, she's a mean girl. She is just a mean girl. And so, all that to say, the rheumatologist that I used to have where we used to live was amazing. His staff was amazing, and I will drive an hour to go there if I need to. So that's what I'm going to be doing. So I will keep you up to date on that stuff. I hope that you are all doing well. I have started creating jewelry, and I will put some samples of it up here if you guys want to see what I'm up to. My husband's books are doing really, really well. That's about all I can share on that right now. But this past weekend, he got way up on the charts on Amazon. But there was something wrong with their calculations, so we don't know exactly how high up he got. So we're waiting to hear on that, but it was below 30. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, that's pretty much what's going on here. Today my daughter took her EMT test. She already drives a rescue ambulance it's a BLS, which is basic life support. But she took her EMT today, and I really think she's gonna pass because she's been studying her little booty off. So I'm excited about that. My son's been doing really great. I think he's thinking about getting his pilot license again. Not that he had it before, but he thought about getting it before and then changed his mind. So yeah, I think he just doesn't, he's stressed out about the financial side of it, so we'll see. But he does work at the flight school. So yeah, that's where we're at, and I hope that you're all doing well and that you're all feeling well and taking your meds and eating well and taking care of yourself. And I'm gonna get off of here, but I just wanted to make sure I got on here and shared a little bit with you without missing another week. So you guys have a great evening, and I will see you next time. Bye.